Hey everybody, welcome to our Repair Corner. We're trying to do a series just talking about some of the basic and common service and wear parts that are on clippers that are popular in the market. What I'm showing here, we have two different versions of this. Three versions really, see, three tools. But we've got the Oster Volt, the Heiniger Sapphire, and then our Oster barber version of this tool, which just calls lithium ion on there. And within that, we have the exact same manufacturing. So in Switzerland, Heiniger, this company, makes these and private labels those to Oster. So when it comes to repair parts and replacements, they interchange back and forth because they really are the same tool. I laid out a drive over here, and I'm sorry I was out of stock on these, but we have a fourth one that's called the Opal. The Opal is going to look very similar on the outside to what these look, but on the inside, they're quite a bit different. If you can look, this is, for all three of these, this is our drive lever that fits inside, along with our eccentric gear. It's got the bearing along with the teeth that move with the motor to get from rotary motion to side blade motion. So as this eccentric moves around in a loping fashion, that allows the lever to pivot back and forth. But if you look at these two, this is our Volt, the barber version, and Sapphire lever, and then this is the one for the Opal, and you can see there's quite a bit of difference in the geometry. And so if we turn it over, they run a different type of eccentric here that's mounted directly to the motor and eliminates this extra gear component. So again, another popular version. They're all about the same amount of power and torque. Again, these are all run with lithium ion batteries. Those batteries are a pull-out design that can be taken out and put back in. We could have multiple batteries, those kind of things. So the lever itself in this case is one of our main wear parts. And so if we turn this over and look, that wear part sticks out right here. And if I turn it on, it's moving back and forth, moving pretty fast. But that is that wear part. And then we also have our hinge. Hinges are always also a wear part. That is what our blade slides on and off with and hooks us to the clipper. When we look at this particular one, this is that barber version. I'm just going to point out a little bit that in here there is no extra component. There's no hook or latch mechanism. There's a slot where one could fit, but there is no latch because on human hair it's really unnecessary to have that latch. On the animal version though, that we have a button we push forward to release a latch, and in this case now we can see it. So we got our button in the back and we've got the hook here in front that catches the socket of the blade. So right up here in the front, that's what that hooks over and makes it so that the blade can't lift and disengage while we're in use. So what can go bad? Well, one, we pull up on the blade or we drop the clipper and the latch mechanism breaks. The little hook breaks off and we need to replace that. How do we replace that? That's a great question. I'm going to take my drill and I've got, let's see here, what my number? This is a number 8 Torx drive bit, and that's going to fit in our screws to mount us to the clipper. So I'll back those out. Get those out of the way. And then our hinge may need a little help here. We'll raise up out of the clipper. And snap it down so there's more clearance there. Now it's come out. So we've got our hinge and our latch. And then notice this one, there's even a little different configuration where on this version there's a loop that goes around the front of metal and this one does not. We're going to grab our third one. It's got a red button, but same shape and look. And notice that on here, this uses the one without that metal going across. So there's one little feature difference that in the private labeling that Oster had this bar put across, whereas on the Heiniger version, it is not there. The nice thing is, whichever one you find will interchange onto the tool. So whether you have this version or this, they work exactly the same. So it's not like, oh, I have to have this one back on here, it's critical, it's going to end the ability to use the tool. Nope, they all interchange. All right, so again, same idea here. It still has two little coil springs. There's two little tiny wires we can kind of point to right here. And those are what are going to help engage our latch mechanism. So even though this is the one that came off of a barber tool, it still has those wires. Now there are some versions where there's no wires. Either way, it still works well for the barber version of this. But let's say we've got our tool and we want to put a new latch on it. And when it comes to us, many times it looks just like this one, where the wires are sticking straight out the back. Now, when we go to put our latch on, the wires can't be sticking out the back. If I just slide that on, there's two little tiny holes that those fit into. And if I try to go up, it'll only allow us to go part way and the wires get caught. And what they're getting caught on is this little bump of steel that's inside here. There's a little leg right here that sticks out. And it won't let, when it's trapped in the holes, it won't allow that to bypass to where you can latch, and it'll just bend the wires and potentially even pull them out of the holes. So how do we take care of that? That's a great question. If you look here, we've preloaded that. And so these wires, originally, like I mentioned, are sticking down and back. So we need to take the little wires and move them up over and hook them on that little metal tab right there. Kind of have to walk around in that little slot so that now the wires are standing straight up and down 90 degrees to the base. Now when we go and we put our wires through, and we hook the front over the base of the hinge, everything stays in place. And we've got to make sure that that doesn't slip off when we get ready to go set it back on the clipper. So we're just going to take that, we're going to lay it over the lever, and we're able to reinstall. Okay? So that would be the simplicity of how we get that all back in with the latch and have it cooperate with us. Let's say we want to go ahead with this one and also change the lever. We don't have any simple access to this, short of taking and removing all the screws to the housing. So I'm going to set the battery aside because that exposes a screw underneath. And then we have 6 more housing screws. We're just going to back these up until they're all loose. Remember, you're going to have this number 8 Torx bit to do that. I'm just going to dump all the screws out of the way, try to not drop them on the floor. Once I have those off, the cover will come loose, and here is your lever. There's a little bit of a hair guard here that's a little rubber piece to help keep hair out of the inside. There's another rubber filter up here to try to keep all the fur and hair inside or outside instead of letting it get into the mechanism. There's your lever. We would put a new one on there. We'd grab our new one, we'd put the new foam piece, or we'd reuse that foam piece if it's still intact, and we're ready to replace that. If for some reason this gear or the bearing isn't moving well or is stripped, we would have a little E-clip right here that we're going to snap off. We'll put a little screwdriver in here, pull that back, and then we could lift the bearing and gear mechanism off, slide the new one on, and put the E-clip back in place. When I go to slide this in, back onto the tool, I just want to line up over the bearing, making sure that our grease seal here or our hair seal stays down into the slot and it's back in place. That's all there really is to it. I'm going to put this back in place, our other rubber seal. It has 2 little pins that it slides over, makes it real easy. I'm going to grab our upper housing. Just as a visual, you can see your motor and you can see your circuit board with the 2 contacts that work with the slide switch that's on the upper housing. We'll just tip this back over. There's really nothing to come loose or to lose in there, so It's really quite user-friendly if you're okay with getting the screws in and out. I'm just going to drop all 6 screws, well, sorry, 7 screws, the 6 longer ones, and the 1 short one that goes underneath the battery. Get those in there and run those back down until they're snug. They don't have to be overly tight, just seated and tight and snug. And it's the 6 main body screws and then our little screw that goes down underneath where the battery compartment is. We'll slide our battery back in. We're going to go back, make sure that our wires again are still sticking through the holes on the hinge, on the latch, from the hinge to the latch. We'll hook that over and set it down into place. Again, there's little lineup guides right here that allow it to be in the right position. Oop, drop a screw. Put the screws back in the hole. And we have fully serviced and maintained either our Oster or our Heiniger tool. If you did snap the hinge down like this, we're going to take a screwdriver to help lift it. If we were going to talk about that hinge a little bit more, the things that wear, one is the strength of the tongue. In other words, when we snap it down, if you can move that at all with your fingers, then the mechanism that is the tensioner has failed. So if it moves at all, it's time to replace it. It requires a screwdriver to lift. The other would be on our blade, we have the socket. The socket has 2 little wings. Those 2 wings saddle over the top of our base of our hinge, and they have, as they come on and off the clipper hundreds of times or thousands of times, eventually they wear away the metal. When that happens, our tolerances are gone and the whole blade can sit there and wiggle. Even though we have adjusted those wings to be tight, there's still gaps and it allows it to rattle and be loud. The key to that is we don't want to lose stroke. Losing stroke loses some of our ability to cut. All right, so again, Oster, human version, barber version. Oh, I said it wrong. With our Osters, we have our barber version and beauty, along with then, or we could just call it our human version, and then we have the animal version of that. The only difference really other than color is that this one has the latch and this one does not. Then Heiniger, here we are again, same exact tool, just a different name on it. Hope this was helpful and that we'll be able to do a lot of clipping with our tools as we keep them serviced correctly. Thanks again for watching.